Hey Indies, welcome back to my channel. So today I have an amazing video for you guys. I am showing you how to create this beautiful black and gold sequin dress with basic bodice pieces or basic pattern pieces. Now, if you guys are loving these videos, make sure you leave me a thumbs up, like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into the video. Now, first things first, I took my basic bodice, and what I'm doing is just creating a basic pattern piece from her shoulder to her knee. Now, I was using my client's measurements for this, and I also want to add that all of the products that I use will be listed down below in the description box, so you guys don't worry. I got you when it comes to the materials and supplies that I use. But now what I'm doing is just going through. I like to identify where the bust line is and the waistline is, create my gray line, and now I am going to simply go ahead and cut this out. Now, one thing that I did is I only use one piece. So with the back, I am going to bring the seam up as far as the neckline is concerned, and I'll cut that out on my fabric. So I'm still just using one piece. I also use my circle skirt pattern, and I am going to create a sleeve, a basic sleeve that is similar to my client's measurements for this. So in total, I only used 3 patterns. I did a basic bodycon that I created from a basic bodice. I used my circle skirt pattern, and I used a basic sleeve that you're going to see me creating right here. Now, all I did was take her armhole measurement and literally create the sleeve. Now, if you know how the if you know how the shape of the sleeve goes, this is so simple, you guys. Like, a lot of the times the sleeves will work as long as you keep the shape of the shoulder and the arm into the sleeve. So all I did was measure her armhole and created the sleeve. Nothing more, nothing less. It was really that simple. Alright, so now what I'm doing here is just cutting my pattern out. Now I am going to be using the basic pattern piece, but remember, for the back, I'm going to bring the neckline up. So what I'll end up doing is using my pattern pieces my fabric pieces as my pattern pieces going forward, especially for cutting out my lining. Now I'm doing the same thing here. I'm just using my pattern weights to go ahead and measure out the circumference of how far I want her train to stand out, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that as well. Now, it was a few inches past my actual circle skirt. I think my circle skirt was 28 inches, and I think I did hers at about 33 inches. Okay, so that's what that was. Now all I'm doing is cutting out my sleeve, and I'm moving on to the lining. I am going to use the fabric as my pattern pieces, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut everything out as I did at the beginning of the video. Now, when I cut my circle skirts out, I do double fold. It's just easier for me that way. Now, when you do double fold, you do got to make sure that it is laying flat on the inside, but you know, just to save time, it's easier to do it that way. Now I am at my industrial jack machine, and I'm going to start by sewing a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both side seams and shoulder seams. is, as you guys notice, I really don't use pins. I'll put a pin at the top and the bottom, but for the most part, just make sure your fabric is lining up, and I do follow my lines on the sewing machine that basically determines what's a 1/2 inch, what's a 1/4, and so forth on. Alright, so now I am going to go ahead and sew the sleeves, and I am sewing them at a 1/2 inch seam allowance as well. Now, oh hey Pepper, so my dog was just being, you know, who she is. Now what I'm doing is I am taking my lining. Now the lining has a little bit more stretch than the sequin fabric, so you'll notice that I am sewing the lining at 3/4 seam allowance, not a 1/2. So even though I cut them at the same exact, I guess with the same exact patterns and measurements, I sew the lining in a little bit more because it has way more stretch than the outside of the fabric. And I guarantee you, if you sew in that extra 1/2 inch, or even you can sew it at 1 inch, it will fit perfectly on the inside. Now the whole key to lining a dress, now right here I just want to show you guys, you know, where we were, what it looks like with the lining and the base of the fabric of the dress. But the whole key to sewing the lining is to make sure that your outside and your inside are 2 whole pieces. Now what I'm doing here is just taking my train, and I'm going to go ahead and sew at a 1/2 inch seam allowance on both sides. Now I did the whole front and back of the lining and the base fabric of the dress, and now I'm doing the same thing with the trains. So all of these right now are separate pieces before I attach them. Now before I connect the trains to the base of the dress, I want to go ahead and sew on my neck piece basically. And all I'm doing here is, now the neck piece is a little bit smaller than the actual neckline, so what you're gonna have to do is kind of use a pull-in method to make sure that it's even, it's like spread evenly across the neckline. It's pretty simple. You know, it'll be just off by like maybe like a 1/4 or a 1/2, and you just got to spread that out and pull it in. So I'm doing the same thing here. Now this is where I begin to attach my lining to my base fabric. I'm starting at the neckline because in order for me to insert the zipper, I have to have the lining attached to the neckline of the dress. And all I'm doing right here is just lining everything up, making sure that it fits. And again, whatever excess it was, I went ahead and pulled that in as well. Now I'm going to change out my foot. I'm using my zipper foot, and I'm going to begin to sew on the zipper. Now this is pretty easy. The zippers are easy as long as you have a foot. They'll pretty much sew themselves. You don't need to be an expert to put a zipper in with a zipper foot, okay you guys? So again, as I say in all my videos, try not to overthink the process. Now once my zipper is attached, I'm going to go ahead and change my foot back out to the regular foot, and I am going to go ahead and attach the lining and the base of the dress at the zipper. And I'm just sewing that at a 1/4. Once I get that sewn, I'm going to go ahead and sew at my 1/2 inch seam allowance to close up the back, and then I just showed you guys what your inside of the dress should look like. The outside and the inside should be similar. You should be able to flip it inside out and get it going. Now what I'm doing here is just attaching the what is it, the train, sorry you guys, I'm attaching my train to the lining of the dress, and I'm going to do the same thing for the base fabric as well. So, and I'm attaching that at the knee. So when you look inside the dress, everything that you're attaching should be on the inside, but what your customer should see is fully closed and clean seams on the inside, not serge seams, but as if the outside was on the inside. That's the best way I can describe the whole lining process. So I'm doing the same thing here. I'm going to go ahead and match up my side seams for my lining, and then I'm going to proceed to attach those together as well. Alright, so I am going to go ahead and sew that at 1/2 inch as well. And I also wanted to add that just make sure once you attach them at the side seams, if you have a tail in the back, just make sure you have your back and your front correct. I've had it happen to me several times where I accidentally attached the front to the back, and you know, you don't want to spend time trying to rip out the fabric, especially some mesh sequin, because it's hard not to get holes in it. So just make sure you take your time with this, and you know, make sure everything adds up. It's okay, you know, it's better to get it right the first time than to have to go back and do things over. Alright, so once that is attached, I'm going to just show you guys a quick update of where we are so you all can see, you know, the dress, like where we are right now. So this is with the neckline, basically the lining attached to the inside of the dress, but it is not attached at the hem yet, you guys. So that is what I'm going to be doing in the next couple steps in this video. So now what I'm doing is taking my 3-inch horsehair, and I am going to attach this at the seam. Let me tell you why this is important. This is something I don't do often, but anytime that I am going to put feather boas onto the hem of a dress, I like to attach horsehair, because I find that the horsehair stops the fabric from stretching. And that is something that I deal with all the time. When I first started doing boas, you know, I would wonder why I have to use so many, and it's because the fabric stretches as you go. I don't have time for that anymore. So this prom season, every single dress that had a boa in it, a feather boa, had horsehair at the bottom. I love it. I think it's a pretty cool method. Now, typically I would hem the dress first before I attached the boa, but what I did was use the horsehair as a closing method for this particular garment, and it came out pretty cool actually. It's something I definitely would consider doing in the future, and the reason why I also did this is to eliminate the bulkiness, because you know, once you close it and then you're trying to put horsehair in on top of what's already closed, it was just going to be a little bit too much. So I tried this and I thought it was pretty cool. I liked it, and it still was a great finish as it relates to what the inside of the dress looked like. So just future reference, if you're doing feather boas, try to put horsehair in it before you do it, especially if you're sewing the boas on the sewing machine. This method works great for the sewing machine, and I guarantee you will find yourself using less boas than you would if you did not put the horsehair in it. So the whole purpose of the horsehair is to stop it from stretching. see me doing here is just making sure everything is lined up as I go. The fabric tends to move, the top fabric tends to move a little bit from the lining, so I'm just being extra careful and making sure that I am catching both ends of the fabric into the horsehair. So it's okay to take your time, you guys. Don't rush it. It's a pretty easy process. Alright, so now what I'm going to do here is just go ahead and attach my sleeve. Now what I do is line up the seam of the sleeve with the seam of the bodice under the arm, and then I pin the top of the sleeve to the top of the shoulder seam. Some people sew their sleeves open. I sew mine closed. That method seems to be a little easier for me, but I'm going to sew it at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Now, I do want to be clear, when I did start this project, the sleeves did not have lining. They were supposed to be see-through, but my client decided that she wanted a full modest look, so I had to go back in and add the lining to the sleeve. Now, due to certain time constraints, I was not able to go all the way back in because I'd already closed the bottom of the dress, the sides, I'd already closed the zipper. So I did have a seam on the inside that was serged, but I just want to advise that when you are fully lining a garment, that is not the way to do it. You should not have any seam inside of your dress showing that is serged. It just defeats the purpose of the lining. So I just want to add, when I show you the dress, that was basically before I added the lining to the sleeve, but at the end of the video you'll see the difference basically. And I'm just doing the same thing here. I'm just lining up those side seams and getting the dress sewn. Not side seams, sorry. Armholes, seams or whatever, you guys. Sorry. Alright, so I just want to show you guys just a little update. This is what the dress was looking like before, but again, this is before I went back in and lined the sleeve. So now what I'm doing is just showing you how when I cut the fabric in the back, like I guess I didn't line up the center of the garment, so a piece of it did not catch the design, and that's okay. I was just trying to save fabric, so I'm just showing you how I cut out a little bit of the design, and I'm going to just hand tack that or hand sew that onto the dress. And as you can see, it doesn't look like I've added anything, which is like pretty cool to me. I think, you know, so basically what I did was just trying to create cohesiveness through the entire gown. It was a pretty easy process, but you know, this is what it's about. I saw an issue and I just immediately implemented, you know, came up with a plan to fix it, and it didn't take too much extra time, you guys. You know, when you see little mistakes like that, sometimes you can just fix them to avoid, you know, any questions. And what I did not want was for my customer to see the dress and be like, well, why, you know, why is there the design all on one shoulder but it's missing from another shoulder? You know, when I was cutting back there, I was just trying to save fabric, so I just did what needed to be done basically. to make sure the entire dress was cohesive, and honestly it looked better. So just want to show you guys a little bit of that hand sewing process. Now the only thing with hand sewing is that I find that sometimes the thread gets, like, I don't know, tangled really easily or whatever, so I would advise not using a super long piece of thread, but just use it, make it long enough to where you can control it basically. But what I do for this is I'm just sewing all around the design. I don't do very large stitches. I try to make sure that if a client has to see it on the inside, that the stitch looks like it got some sense, if that makes sense. You know, it doesn't look rushed. I think when you do the super big stitches, I understand the reasoning behind it, but you know, just to cut out the, well, why is this like this on the inside and things like that, I just try to, I call it stitching with integrity. So it was pretty simple. It really didn't take a lot of time to get this done and to get this down. And you're basically gonna see at the end of the garment, or the end of the video, what this looked like. Alright, so now what I'm doing here is I am showing you how I sew my feather boas on the sewing machine. Now again, the whole purpose of entering the put it in the horsehair is so that the fabric doesn't stretch. But I'm going to cut those little strings off that come on the end of the boas. I'm going to go ahead and change my length and width on my sewing machine to the highest length and the highest width. And then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and place my boa under the foot. Now you may have to lift the foot up like manually so that you can actually get it under there, but what I like to do is just kind of spread it out in between the middle of the boa, and that's where I'm going to stitch at. And you guys, this process is so much faster, so much more accurate than sitting there trying to hand tack the feather boas on. It is like so much faster, and I also find that I use less boas when I do this. So I think I ended up using a total of about 3.5 boas, whereas when I was doing it the other method, like hand tacking it, and without putting horsehair in it, I was using like 6 boas. 6 boas for a standard train. So yeah, if you guys have not tried sewing your boas on, try it. Now I would advise changing your needle. I do change to a size 18 needle, just to go through the rope that's on the boa. But this method is pretty simple, you guys, and I'm going to just quickly show you how I attach. Like, I'm attaching that one boa, but I'm about to run out, and so I'm going to have to attach a second boa. So I just want to show you guys briefly what that process looked like. But honestly, when I do this, it takes no more than 30 minutes to do a whole boa bottom. And so what you're doing with this method is getting your time back, because I know when I used to hand tack the boas before, it would take a long time, and I just would be like, why is it taking me 2-3 hours to hand tack boas? So I don't go through that process anymore. It's about being quick and efficient. So if you guys haven't tried this method out, try it out. It's pretty cool. I like it. Been doing it for a minute now, and it just works perfectly. And as you can see, I'm doing the same thing, just kind of spreading it down the middle, taking my time with it, and I'm going to show you guys what it looks like once I'm finished. Alright, so this is what it looks like. It's hand tacked on there. The zigzag line is in the horsehair, which makes it a little less noticeable. So I think it came out great. Now what I am doing here is just hand tacking. I do 4 tacks for the arm. When you hand tack the boas around the arm, like the wrist, I am just hand tacking into 4 areas, 1 at the beginning stitch, 2 in the middle, and 1 at the end. And you guys, this method is pretty simple as well, but what I was trying to do with this video was, 1, show you the importance of using basic pattern pieces, not overthinking the process. I wanted to show you what a fully lined feather boa, invisible zipper, hand tacking, I did a little bit of applique work, all of that, what all of that looks like. And it was really simple, you guys. I literally got this dress done in 1 day and was able to get it shipped out first thing in the morning the next day. So this design process can be hard, but the importance of it is not to overthink, trust the process, continue to learn, continue to grow. I am so elated to be doing videos like this. If you guys want to see more, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, stay happy, stay hungry, and stay blessed. Peace.